Days go passing by and turn to years, but with some pumpkin pie.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Gunther, editor of Canadian Cattleman magazine. Welcome to Between the Rows this week. What you just heard was a song created by jazz singer Alex Bird along with the Turkey Farmers of Canada as part of a Thanksgiving ad campaign. Now on with the rest of the show.
Sweetest moments of them all.
Today we're going to hear from people involved with Reserve 107, a film documenting reconciliation and an attempt to resolve historical injustice in rural Saskatchewan.
We are getting people from across the country, universities in New Brunswick, museum in Abbotsford, British Columbia, who are saying they're using this documentary. It continues to show a way that there are positive ways of working towards reconciliation.
We'll get an update from chuckwagon driver Amber LaRue on how her race season went and her plans heading into winter.
Yeah, stuff started to come together. We had some really good runs, a few top 15 runs. I don't remember how many top 10, but yeah, it was a really good end of the season.
And we'll hear from Tom Harrison of the Sask Stock Growers Foundation on a conservation idea that's gaining interest.
When we talk about conservation easements, what we're talking about is basically putting it on native prairie or native grasslands, and the restriction would be you can't break or develop that land.
But first, a word from our sponsors.
Maybe you've had an idea about upgrading your operation. Maybe about finally getting that renovation done or buying some new equipment. Or maybe you're thinking about how you can be a bit more financially secure from season to season. Get some help making it happen by speaking with an RBC Agriculture Account Manager. Then, set up an investment plan to make even more of your ideas happen. Visit rbc.com/chartyourcourse and get started today.
Conservation easements are a potential tool to protect native prairie, but ranchers are often reluctant to sign on to permanent agreements. The Saskatchewan Stock Growers Foundation has been floating the idea of easements with finite terms. Melissa Bazan, field editor with Canadian Cattleman, caught up with Tom Harrison outside the Regina Rugby Club during the Canadian Farm Writers Federation conference.
Okay, so to start, I guess, just explain what term easements are.
Okay, the term easement is, an easement to start with, a conservation easement to start with, is a legal agreement between a landowner and an agency who can hold an easement, and it places certain restrictions on what the person can do with that land, and it's applied to the title.
Right.
And when we talk about conservation easements, what we're talking about is basically putting it on native prairie or native grasslands, and the restriction would be you can't break or develop that land.
Right. So, and why did you decide to start term easements in Saskatchewan?
Okay, so most of the easements to date have been perpetual. And many of the producers that we've talked with, we've surveyed producers over the last 5 or 6 years, and most of the guys are adverse to signing a perpetual conservation easement. So we said, well, what do you think about term easements or having a specific length of time? And there's still some apprehension about it, but there was more interest in doing a term easement where you didn't restrict the next generation's decision.
Right. And how many producers have expressed interest in this now or have kind of joined or signed an easement, a term easement?
Well, right now we actually haven't signed any because we are still working through our evaluation of how much we would actually pay the producer. And so that's what we've got on the go right now. I don't know if you've been looking, but we're running a survey with producers on their willingness to accept a payment. And that's been running through Chad's office, like the Stock Growers Association's office. And so we're still trying to determine that, and we're doing some back and forth with the federal government on how much we think we can pay for it, and we've developed that too. What we have though is we have a number of producers have said they're interested, and they've let their land be assessed or appraised for a fair market value. And that tells me that's always the first step in trying to determine the value of these things.
And I guess, do you have a timeline on when you think producers could sign these types of easements?
In my dream world, I was hoping we would have some signed already. I'm hoping, I don't want to say it, but I mean, I would hope by the end of this year or the end of the fiscal year, so end of March of 2023. So.
Okay. And do you think other provinces might follow suit, or have you heard anything from other provinces?
We're working with what they call a community practice with the Alberta group, which is led by the Canadian Cattlemen's Association, and they are looking at exactly the same sort of thing. So they're expressing some sort of interest in this as well too.
Great.
That was Tom Harrison, rancher and project manager with the Sask Stock Growers Foundation, and Melissa Bazan of Canadian Cattlemen.
On one. You're all riders. For Amber LaRue, wide pulley. There goes the Lamleys, Western Ware Horn, and here we go. And number 4.
Next up, we're going to hear from Amber LaRue, the first female professional chuckwagon driver. We've checked in twice this year with Amber, who started the 2022 season after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID in 2020, followed by an injury in 2021. Unfortunately, Amber lost her father this spring as well. But with support from her family and friends, she's soldiered on. I caught up with her on her farm near Glasgow, Saskatchewan to find out how things went and what she's doing to prepare for winter.
Here comes the McCallum wagon with Dallas Dick at the lines in the wearing farm outfit.
Okay, so to start off with, just give us a little bit of a recap of your season.
So I guess we haven't talked since Poundmaker after the first show. We had some growing pains for a few weeks, and then at NACC things started to come together. I picked up a new left leader there, and yeah, stuff started to come together. We had some really good runs, a few top 15 runs. I don't remember how many top 10, but yeah, it was a really good end of the season, and we finished strong, and all the horses finished really healthy. And yeah, now it's just some downtime. I've been shopping pretty steady. I've picked up 2 new ones so far, and I had picked up another one throughout the season that I had just brought home and turned out because he needed some downtime. So I'll have 4 new ones for next year so far, but it's a long winter ahead. So you never know how many more will be added to the lineup before we start training at the end of March. So yeah, overall it was a good season, and I finally found a bit of finishing power at the last month, I'd say. And yeah, I blame that more on the fact that the horses had 2 years off and they finally started to hit their peak later than I would have liked. But I think next year we're going to come back really strong, which is promising and a good feeling to have.
Yeah, and you had some personal bests this year as well, I think, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Like in 2019, I had only had, I think, 2 or 3 top 15 finishes. And now, I don't know, like we were hammering on the door at least. So that was nice. Like I think the second Poundmaker show was our best show of the season. We ended up 9th overall there. So yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we're kind of heading into the winter. What do you do with the horses just to keep them kind of maintained in good health and stuff coming off the race season?
I still have to pull shoes. That hasn't got done yet, but they're out on pasture. They're still coming in. They're not getting their oats in the barn and getting barn at night anymore, but they still come every day and get their oats. Everybody gets checked over. They'll come in the next couple weeks and get all their shoes pulled and trimmed before snow flies, get dewormed, getting ready for winter. Right now it's just they're out on pasture eating grass, and they also they're supplemented with hay if they want it, just so they can eat as much as they want and get as fat and sassy as they want before winter comes.
So are you planning to run like 2 full outfits next year, or maybe 3, or what's your plan?
I'm game planning for 3 outfits. Like we're only allowed to run 1 on race day, but I had 3 going into this season, and by mid-season just the way horses worked and didn't get along with another horse or whatever, I was down to 2 outfits by the end of the year, which was still not a bad feeling. I still had 2 outfits to switch back and forth between. But yeah, that barn depth, I want to build a little bit stronger. And I knew going into this season after 2 years off, I wasn't going to know exactly where my weaknesses were. I had a pretty good idea, but I know building for next year what I need. So yeah, like I say, still shopping, but I'm sure by spring it'll all be coming together well. I have 20 head right now, so there never seems to be enough once you hit the road and start racing.
Yeah. So how many? Okay, so you need 6, like at least 18 to have 3 full outfits.
Ideally, yeah. I think I'm up to 5 outriding horses now. I have 2 new ones that I don't know what they'll be, and I think there's like 12 wagon horses and I know their positions and they're solid in that. So yeah, just a few more to add to the lineup that'll hopefully build us and we can make new combos from that.
Yeah. And so I had an opportunity to meet your mom this year and everything, like kind of cool to see your family and some of your friends helping out. Right. And so, but big year for you too, like first one racing without your dad. So I'm sure he was proud of you, but like how...
Yeah. I don't know. There was quite a few days where I turned my top barrel and took it right off the marker, and I'm 90% sure that was Dad because there's no other explanation. Like the horses did their job. My wheel team came around and pulled the wagon around off the barrel, but there was a lot of times I was going to the top and I was like, well, I guess we're taking our top tonight, and it stayed standing. So yeah, I know Dad was there with us, but yeah, I had overwhelming support from my mom and my stepdad, Jerry, friends and family. And yeah, it was really good. My sponsors were fabulous this year. So it was a really good season overall. And I'm really looking forward to next year because of it. So it's always good to end on that high note.
Yeah, for sure. I saw one of those races when you're at top barrel stayed up. It was good. So like any other goals for next year, I guess, like what are you looking for in horses as you're perhaps shopping for new horses? What do you need?
I need another right wheeler and another lead horse, whether that be right or left, I'll fill in. I guess going into the winter here, my plan is to peak a little sooner next year, obviously. Mm-hmm. I think a large part of that is I didn't get training soon enough this year just because we live in northern Saskatchewan and I can only do so much about the weather. So because of that, I purchased an equisizer, which will be up and running before wintertime here, which I'm super excited about. So those who don't know, it's essentially a ring with dividers in it. There's 6 compartments and it's ran on a variable speed motor. So the horses can go in there and it'll have good ground while hauling in sand and making sure the footing's really well. And ideally I can get in there sooner than I would be able to out in the field with truck training or driving or anything. So my goal is to be training by April 1st at the latest. As we're this year, I think it was like the 18th or something. So I lost 18 days is a big deal, even though you're feeding them and everything. If you're not getting those days under them, it makes a big difference because I peaked essentially 2 to 3 weeks later than I would have liked to. Yeah. So if we can get those early days under them, I think that'll make a big difference. Yeah. Next year.
Good. Anything else you want to add, Amber?
Just a huge thank you to all my sponsors this season for making all of it possible. We definitely wouldn't be able to go down the road with all their support. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine the expense and everything, like feeding all these horses over the winter. It's not like you just pick them up in the spring.
No, the winter is, my dad always used to say, the most important day of your next season is the day your previous one ended. And it totally is, because if you brought those horses home and turned them out, you would have nothing for next year. So it's really important, like right now, to take them from lean race condition to putting fat on them and building them back up to go into winter. So It's a really important time of year, essentially.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks so much.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
That was chuckwagon driver Amber LaRue. Amber finished 19th overall with the CPCA. You can follow her on Instagram at Allie's Racing or on Facebook under LaRue Racing. Finally, the documentary Reserve 107 is a made-in-Saskatchewan story of reconciliation and an attempt to resolve historical injustice. First, a little history. In 1876, after signing Treaty 6, the young Chippewayan First Nation was issued the Stoney Knoll Reserve near present-day Laird in east central Saskatchewan. But not long after, as the bison disappeared, the Stoney Knoll people ventured farther afield to try to find the last of the herds and fend off starvation. After the Riel resistance, they were afraid to return to their reserve full-time as they feared repercussions. Gary LaPlante, a Stoney Knoll descendant, explains how the federal government responded to that situation at the time.
How they were able to justify this to themselves was that they said that the reserve was not being occupied. Therefore, it's vacant and we'll just take it.
In 1897, the federal government distributed the land to Mennonite and Lutheran settlers. Eventually, descendants of the original Stoney Knoll band connected with the Mennonite and Lutheran communities at Laird to discuss the issue. As you can imagine, there was a lot of apprehension on both sides, but they gathered for a meal at the Frey's family farm and started to work through the issue. In 2006, both communities signed a memorandum of understanding and have worked together since to acknowledge the history and push the government to settle the land claim. LaPlante says the main message of the film is getting through.
We were quite pleased with the finished product regarding the documentary itself. Mr. Brad Leach was the one that did the filming and editing and put the film together. He did a good job. Everybody was satisfied and happy with it. And almost immediately when we had shared it and had other third-party groups viewed it initially, we had overwhelmingly positive feedback on it. It really, for a lot of a lot of comments about how they appreciated it and how powerful the message was about it. And that's one of the things. But and I was curious. I remember thinking, what kind of message was it? The message were they getting was the land claim. No, the primary message I was getting through is this: the amount of results, positive results we achieved regarding reconciliation, and that's the primary message I believe got through. And here we were in Saskatchewan with this claim, and we got everybody's together, they're eating together, visiting, and educating one another, and working together to move forward and really direct this to resolve this outstanding matter. We come to all understand that this thing shouldn't be between us. Really, this matter has to be taken up with the government of Canada. That's where the responsibility lies. That's where it lay all the time. It should never have been the Stoney Knoll descendants versus the Mennonites of Laird area or the Lutherans of the Laird area. It should never have been like that. And this is what we learned from this film.
Randy Clausen of the Mennonite Central Committee in Saskatoon has also seen growing interest in the film.
We are getting people from across the country, universities in New Brunswick, museum in Abbotsford, British Columbia, who are saying they're using this documentary. It continues to show a way that there are positive ways of working towards reconciliation, and it is holding people's interest and is a very important piece that way.
Still, as time has passed, there have been some big changes and losses within both communities.
Yeah, so it's been 7 years since the Reserve 107 documentary was made. And one of the things that has, I think, been significant from our perspective is some significant leadership transitions in those 7 years. Shortly after the documentary came out, within weeks actually after the documentary came out, very sadly that Chief Ben Weenie passed away. And so that was a significant transition. And his wife, now Chief Sylvia Weenie, has picked up that work. At the same time, there's been The other chief and elder that was seen regularly in the documentary is George Kingfisher as the hereditary chief, and he's still around and still involved. He has passed on the hereditary title to his son, and so getting to know new leaders in this has been a part of the journey. And each leader brings their own leadership into the process. My predecessor within MCC, Leonard Dole, he was also seen in the documentary. He has been a major person linking the different communities, the Mennonite and Lutheran communities, and just has a way of being able to connect that way. And so when he retired 2.5 years ago, that also was a significant transition in this whole process. And also right around the same time that Leonard retired, and which is also when I came in into the story, the Mohawk genealogist, the consultant who was also a part of this, passed away in Ottawa. And so that also is just a recognition that there's knowledge keepers and elders within this story that, when they pass away, there are losses there. And so that increases the urgency. I mean, the fact that already this has been going on for decades and decades, it's an outstanding issue of justice.
And there's still the matter of the land that was taken from Stoney Knoll back in 1897. The Stoney Knoll band did file a claim with the Indian Claims Commission in 1993, LaPlante explains.
They weren't successful with the Indian Claims Commission, and they weren't successful with the courts the first time. So the claim again, there's a lot of work that was done by Maurice Law during this time. This law since 2006, and they filed the claim. They refiled the claim February 1st to the 2022 to this Crown Indigenous Relations Northern Affairs Canada Pacific Claims Branch.
LaPlante says that from there, the Government of Canada had 6 months to decide whether the claim met minimum standards.
If it does not meet minimum standards, that's it. As far as the Government of Canada is concerned, this matter is done with. It's a dead issue from their point of view. That was one of there was a lot of fear around that decision between February 1st, 2022 to August 2022, August 1st. That was the time period, that window of 6 months, I think it is, that they had to decide about this claim. So on August 1st, the decision was made, and then we found out very soon after that the claim indeed met minimum standards.
Now that the claim has met minimum standards, the federal government will move into the negotiation stage. LaPlante adds that any treaty settlement involving property requires both a willing buyer, such as the band, and a willing seller. Meanwhile, the folks on the ground have continued to work together to make sure the history of the Stoney Knoll band isn't forgotten.
The one couple whose farm is closest to the Stoney Knoll site itself, Wilmer and Barb Fraze, have had a vision for a number of years, I would say, but it really came to the fore about a year ago or so when they said, we would like to build some kind of interpretive site or storyboards or something at the Stoney Hill site itself, which will tell the story. And so they came to MCC, they came to the office of the Treaty Commissioner here in Saskatoon, and then bringing together people like Gary from the Stoney Knoll band to develop an appropriate way of telling this story at the site. And so that developed and came to fruition over this last winter and spring, and we had an amazing opening ceremony for it right at the end of June.
June 22nd at Stoney Knoll, Stoney Hill, the actual physical hill. We all gathered there, and Wilmer and Barb Froese put so much effort into this, and with the support of all the three groups, with Mennonite Central Committee, with Randy Clausen, and other Mennonites on their own initiative, with the Lutheran Church, Jason Johnson and his congregation, him and Robert Schultz, and then the Stoney Knoll, the chief counsel, the descendants. Again, we come together and supported Wilmer and Barb, and they did how they did it was, I was just so pleasantly surprised at how well how well the job was done on that interpretive site. The storyboards and the gateway with those eagles, and the storyboard explains the whole history from 1876 and basically to where we're at today.
That was Gary LaPlante, a member of Stoney Knoll, and Randy Clausen of the Mennonite Central Committee. For more information or to watch the film, visit reserve107thefilm.com. Listeners in the Saskatoon area might be interested in the MCC's Peace Conference, October 21st to 22nd. The theme is reconciliation, and they will be screening a new related documentary on October 21st called Custodians, A Story of Ancient Echoes. For more information, visit mcccanada.ca. Listeners in the Saskatoon area might be interested in the Mennonite Central Committee's Peace Conference, October 21st to 22nd. The theme is reconciliation, and they will be screening a new related documentary on October 21st called Custodians, A Story of Ancient Echoes. For more information, visit mcccanada.ca. That's it for Between the Rows this week. I'm your host, Lisa Gunther of Canadian Cattlemen. Many thanks to guests Tom Harrison, Amber LaRue, Gary LaPlante, and Randy Clausen. An appreciation as always to colleagues Bruce Thorson and Melissa Bazan. As we head into Thanksgiving, I'll leave you with a song created by jazz singer Alex Bird with the Turkey Farmers of Canada as part of a Thanksgiving ad campaign. Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone.
The days go passing by and turn to years, but with some pumpkin pie.
Maybe you've had an idea about upgrading your operation. Maybe about finally getting that renovation done or buying some new equipment. Or maybe you're thinking about how you can be a bit more financially secure from season to season. Get some help making it happen by speaking with an RBC Agriculture Account Manager. Then, set up an investment plan to make even more of your ideas happen. Visit rbc.com/chartyourcourse and get started today.